Hi, Dominic. How are you? You are you ready to answer some questions for me?
I am. I'm very well. Liz is in the UK. I'm out here in Brazil. You can see the difference in light and
A
season.
bit different.
It's a bit different.
So, can you tell me and everyone how this came into being? How did World Tribal Alliance start?
Well, great question. So Mahanji, who is the spiritual master behind this whole movement, who my wife and I are very closely connected to, had a vision while he was at his Australian ashram that it was time that we brought together the sons and daughters of Mother Nature so that we could give her a voice. You know, his feeling at the time he was watching these horrific bushfires was that it's finally got out of hand. It's finally gone too far. There's such a lack of sensitivity toward the vibrations of Mother Nature that we're going past the point of no return. And so it's time that we put stewardship of the land back into the hands of those who have demonstrated an ability to live in harmony with it and frankly with her, with this incredible being of which we are all a part. So that was the genesis of it. He then came to stay with us in Brazil, mentioned it to both my wife and I, Anna and I, and we loved everything he had to say. We then suggested that he speak with a dear friend of ours, a Brazilian Huniquin elder from the deep Brazilian Amazon called Yubei. So Mahanji had a call with Yubei, Anna translated, and it was just such a beautiful exchange. You know, both Anna and I were deeply touched and affected by the way these two masters interacted with each other. And Mahanji said, look, I feel like you two are involved somehow. Would you like to be? So we both said yes. You know, absolutely, not having the first clue what that meant. But we said absolutely. And, he said, I'm only going to give you, a few instructions. The main one being that you are not to go and proactively look for anything or anyone. This plan already exists. Your job is to unearth it, take action, always take action. Don't have any idea of how it should be because you'll be disappointed, and allow it to flow because you're working directly with Mother Nature on this one, which was daunting. I mean, that was not an easy thing for me to take on in my very rational mind. But sure enough, that's the approach we took. After some trial and error, I did try and contact people and it just didn't work, so we allowed it to emerge and flow. And again, his vision from the beginning was to bring together the purest aspects of the human family, to unite their message, to amplify their message, so that the rest of the world can hear the clarion call of Mother Nature once and for all and make the decision using their own free will on an individual basis, whether they want to follow that or again follow the other narrative that is the predominant narrative in our modern world of separation. So that's the idea, in addition, of course, to preserving indigenous culture, nature, and these wonderful wisdom traditions, because if we don't preserve these ways of being, then they will die out. And that, from my experience running this, has been very, very practical. It's very grounded. It's providing generators. We just sent some aluminium boats to the Brazilian Amazon, funds to repair temples, food, disaster relief. This is the stuff that's actually really needed in these communities, from my experience, these very practical things. And then once we help to provide those sorts of basic aspects of everyday life for these communities, then the wisdom tradition propagates itself, because they can live in these very remote areas. If the rest of the world decides that what they have is of sufficient value, that we provide that very basic level of sustenance to them, they're not looking for much more, from my experience. And then we all benefit from, again, these incredible wisdom traditions and these ways of being and these basic approaches to reality. I think that's the phrase that keeps coming back to me as I work on this project. It's about an approach to reality. What are we doing here? What is this? I definitely would recommend listening to some of these elders.
It's how it is. This is how the world functions. And there are no other ways. There are no other shapes of living. There has to be,
Correct.
but these tribes and these elders are proving quite the opposite. So I'm so pleased that it's being unearthed. I love how
So
you,
beautiful.
it's just there. It's just uncovering. It's just remembering. Yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
absolutely. And
Where are all these elders coming from, aside from say Sia and Ubu?
Yubei, yeah. So the elders are from really each corner of the world. So one of the things that Mahanji was quite clear about from the beginning was that we weren't to go and proactively look for anybody, that they would naturally emerge. And that's really been a theme throughout everything to do with the World Tribal Alliance, is that there is this palpable force that seems to be directing the movie. And the more that the people involved, including myself, try and proactively affect the plan with our own preferences, the less it works. And so, as regards the elders that have joined, they have just naturally emerged, and it's been really an incredible thing to watch. They are, as mentioned, from each corner of the planet. We have Awitia, who's one of the most elevated Maori elders from New Zealand, Auntie Puna from Hawaii, Tito La Rosa, who I know that you know, Liz, from Peru, from the Sacred Valley, Don Hippolito, who's actually his teacher, which blows my mind that he's even got a teacher, he's so elevated, and of course Yubei, who we've just mentioned, from the Brazilian Amazon, Pacha from Colombia, Mamo Kuncha from the Sierra Nevada of Colombia, Mama Lorenzo from the same tribe, from the Arhuaco tribe in the Sierra Nevada of Colombia, Verola Spider, our wonderful Lakota elder, who's just magic, absolutely love her, and Onde, who is from the Sami people of northern Norway. We also have from Africa, from southern Africa itself, Queen Eloise, who is a Korana queen, who's a white lioness. She's absolutely majestic. She's just the most wonderful human being. And we have Lise, who is our San elder, our Khoisan elder, who's a wonderful shaman and healer. And yeah, that's our list for now, but it's growing by the day. There are all kinds of elders who are spontaneously emerging. I just had a conversation recently with John from Papua New Guinea, who's the most fabulous steward of his land, and he's, like so many of these elders, been through hell, but he has enormous faith and he perseveres, and as a result we still have that ecosystem intact as a result of him and his fellow Indigenous brothers and sisters out there. So yeah, it's building by the day.
Lovely. What's so significant about bringing everyone to Southern Africa, to Cape Town? Why there? Why there?
Yeah, so one of Mahanji's closest devotees is a man called Craig Foster, who I also count as a very dear friend of mine. Craig is responsible for the film, among many others, My Octopus Teacher, which I'm sure you're familiar with, as many of our viewers are. Craig is one of the most sensitive, calibrated human beings that I've met. He's so deeply in tune with his natural surroundings. He's spent his life working with indigenous tribes from all over the world, with a particular focus on the San Bushmen of the Kalahari. And again, he's very close with Mahanji. And so I think about 3 years ago, when Mahanji was visiting, maybe 2 years ago, Mahanji had mentioned his intention for the World Tribal Alliance. And Craig said, well, you do realize, don't you, that it's now been established that this coastline where he lives, where they film My Octopus Teacher, is now recognized as the cradle of human culture. This, we've discovered these artifacts in the Blombus Cave and other sites around that incredible coastline, which contain artifacts going back 200,000 years, representative of art, complex communication, and really the beginnings of human thought, independent thought. So he said, what better place to bring these wonderful elders than the genesis of human civilization itself, And so Mahanji kind of was talking about it with me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I can't think of a better place. It sounds amazing." And then what's interesting is that in the process of working out how to host this thing, which obviously is logistically complex, it became clear that actually maybe this other area of South Africa called the Drakensberg might be more straightforward. So, because they have these big hotels and nature, etc., etc. So I started looking into that, and it was fascinating because I tried to pay a deposit, and it just wouldn't go through. There was this metaphysical blockage that just everything I tried, different accounts, different this, different that, none of it worked, and the manager wouldn't get back to me. And I thought, hold up, maybe we go back to Cape Town, to the Cape Peninsula. So we did, and then sure enough, everything clicked really quickly. So yeah, the idea is that we're going back to the place where the Great Mother gave us the ability to think with the purest among us, the purest of humankind, to come back 200,000 years later, and maybe to reflect upon what we've done as a civilization, as a humanity, as a species, with that incredible ability, the ability to think. And of course, it's a mixed bag, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for reflection, and also a lot of opportunity for healing. And I think that comes hand in hand with reflection. I think one of the major things we'll be doing on the ground is to contemplate upon our place in this very complex ecosystem, and to decide maybe a different way to approach reality going forward that's more harmonious with this incredible being that we call the Mother, this reality. So yeah, that's the intention.
I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited just hearing all of this information and people and power and so in terms, I know that Mahanji's inspiration from this it comes from seeing the world, losing itself. But what's the significance of? So we've established the significance of the place, where this geographical, where it will be held geographically. But what about in terms of where it is in time and space? So now, why is this happening? What's the pull? What's the energy of the one?
I think, Liz, that it was written eons ago, this gathering. I think that we, as a civilization, have strayed so far into our separateness, into our objectified, separate psychological constructs, the me and the you and the America and this country and all of this stuff, that we are close to the point maybe of no return. We've used the Mother, we've used planet Earth, and so Mahanji's feeling is that humanity deserves the chance to make a different choice, and that's impossible if humanity doesn't have all the information. So why now? Because we are at this inflection point, and these incredible elders, and of course Mahanji himself, are pure enough, which is to say that they have stayed calibrated to their natural surroundings to a sufficient extent that they can talk on behalf of Mother Nature. So the idea is that we bring these wonderful elders together, we unify their message, and I will say that there are the most incredible consistencies across their philosophies, their theologies, the way they look at reality. It's the same language, time and again. It's the Father Sky, the Father Sun, Mother Earth, Gaia, Pachamama. They're separated by oceans, by, these communities have never spoken, and yet they all have the same cosmology. So yeah, it's really, so there is that. And so what we are aiming to do, why now, is to bring these amazing pure souls together, to unify their message, and then to amplify their message out into the world, to build a bridge into the contemporary world, so that those hearts that are sufficiently open, those eyes that are ready to see, those ears that are ready to hear, have the option to hear an alternative approach. Then what they do with that, whether they choose to plug into that and to be with that or not, obviously that's their free will, that's their choice. But the feeling is that at the moment, most people have no idea that these very objective truths exist. The most important being that underneath it all, we are all one thing. And if we take that seriously as a proposition in our everyday lives, it fundamentally shifts, I feel, the way that we approach reality. In other words, it's a very different conversation whether one country goes to war with another if the people in that other country are the same thing as me, literally, not figuratively. And so we want to make this teaching available to the world, and I feel more and more that people are yearning actually for this level of connection. They're yearning to hear from people that are not invested in their own selfish interests. They're yearning to hear from, and I always give this reference of King Arthur and Merlin. Like we've lost the Merlins. We've just got lots of leaders, apparent leaders, but there's no sane voice in the room that's outside of the political process. And so I feel it's absolutely essential that we start to bring back this concept of an elder. So long answer, but that's why now.
I think that that Merlin or that elder kind of energy is it's so needed and it's so lost. And it kind of, as you say, all of these different cultures, how they've grown up over different times and space, and yet they're essentially supporting the same beautiful goal. Is refreshing for people to hear or to remember, which I often think people, when they learn some truth, it's more of a remembering than learning, right? That's always been there, like this this gathering, it's kind of always been on the cards. It's always coming. On a personal note, I'm just listening to you, and I used to be in university. And I attended this course that was alternative ways of healing across cultures. And this sounds like a similar thing, to kind of come together and heal not only ourselves within the relationship of us and Mother Earth, but Mother Earth herself. And, that entire relationship needs looking at and holding. So this sounds like we're kind of, it sounds like this is a safekeeping for all of these traditions and cultures.
Exactly.
To
what
pass it on, and that you said, to hear, for those who are ready to hear. So.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you just touched on, I've experienced directly, and what has been amazing for me as a practice being involved in this, because in my life, coming from the Western world and from a traditional British education, Western education, there's this idea that one needs to use their intellectual mind to learn information and then store it. And oftentimes I never felt it came particularly naturally to me, this idea of just cramming myself with information and then I can use that in the world. And what's fascinating, I feel, about these wisdom traditions is that it's very obvious that the earth itself blessed these cultures, the earth did, with this wisdom. It emerged over thousands of years. It just naturally came forth, and they had to be quiet enough to hear that. And those who are the most quiet within their cultures, and we call them healers and shamans and elders, the qualification for that is their emptiness. It's not their cleverness. And so what's so beautiful about this alliance is that we're getting a front row seat to experience these unbelievably sacred traditions, these wisdom traditions, which emerged over thousands of years of quietness and patience and calibration. So for us to step in and have access to that is a huge boon. It's like winning the lottery. It's like, well, we're almost not eligible for that because we weren't quiet enough. We went and did what we did, So it's just wonderful to see. And what I will say is, seeing these elders together, just being in their presence together, the level, Liz, of humility, and it sounds cliched, but it couldn't be more true. The higher the elder, the more humble they are. It's just watching them with Mahanji interact, the quietness, the emotional vulnerability, the respect, twinned with this almost nuclear power, this enormous force that moves through them. But it's fascinating to watch because they don't ever own it. They never describe it as their power. It's always the mother, the father, the ancestors, because it's moving through them. They're not grabbing it. They're just an instrument for it. And I think it's so beautiful when we reflect upon how you only have access to that when you surrender to it. You can't own it. The minute you try and own it, the minute you try and make yourself special because of it, you're lost again, right? Then you're Icarus, then you're too close to the sun and it burns you. And we see that, I think, in today's culture, where people are starting to awaken and their minds naturally begin to cling to whatever identity is available, and that often looks like a kind of a spiritual identity, but it feels heavy. And I feel a lot of the time that what we see is a reinforcement of individual specialness, of separation with spirituality, using spirituality, and it's unconscious. I went through that phase very deeply myself. That's why I can speak to it. With these elders, you don't feel that at all. It's not theirs. They're guardians and stewards of it, and they're passing it on, and they're careful to pass this way of being on to the younger generations. It's almost as if they're not teaching specific things. They're teaching a way of approaching nature, and then nature does the teaching. So it's just wonderful, and it does involve enormous patience. And once again, we're benefiting from thousands of years of these practices. So, and as a result of all of that, maybe it isn't for everyone. And I think there is an acknowledgement of that with Mahanji and myself and the whole team, which is that this isn't going to be for everyone. This is quite subtle. This does take the willingness to surrender and trust, and these practices, this way of being. And what is the teaching of all these elders? Well, from my experience, it's very, very simple, and it's universally positive. It's not what we hear today when it comes to the environment and the climate, which is typically, don't do this, don't do that, you ought not do that, don't drive your car, don't use plastic, etc., etc., which I don't feel is a very effective way to enact change. I don't think the human mind responds well to being told what not to do. That the wisdom that tends, from my experience, to come through these elders is simple, practical, and always positive, typically positive. So it will be, you'll speak to one of these incredible elders and say, well, this is what's happening in my life, and they'll say, why don't you go through to your neighbor and offer them, why don't you bake them a cake? You think, well, what has that got to do with anything I've just told you? What are you talking about? Or they'll say, it's like that, and it can be frustrating to the mind because that's not gonna. What's that? That's nothing. I can't. Or they'll say, go and get some tomato seeds and just one pot and just plant one and be with it and look after it and nurture it and put your hands in the soil, and then you'll see the blossom and the fruit start to develop, and you'll develop. And they don't say any more than that. Then you'll work out for yourself how special that is. And then you'll do it, and then suddenly you're so present, you're so with this miracle, and you see this flower develop out of a shoot, and then you see the incredible fruit come, and you can't believe, oh my God, I've got one tomato, it's a miracle. I can, and you're with that, and then all of a sudden your relationship to waste completely changes, because you see how precious it is, in a way that if I just explain that to somebody, okay, fine, it's a different thing, it doesn't land the same way. So that's the other thing with their wisdom, is that it does take patience, but if one suspends their disbelief and take action on what they're telling us might serve us, all kinds of miracles happen quite quickly, from my experience. So yeah.
So you said that this might not be for everyone, nor it isn't for everyone, but if someone does, they do feel called. They do feel that this is really speaking to them. How does someone participate in this? It's a 6-day event, yes?
Correct, yeah. So it runs from the 4th Well, technically it runs from the opening ceremony will be on the 5th, an internal one, then there'll be a public ceremony on the 6th, down at Cape Point, and then it will run up until the 9th. And in terms of participation, physical participation is challenging. It's the work we're doing, which we'll come on to in a moment maybe, is ceremonial in nature, so you just can't have that many people there. Also, Cape Town isn't the most accessible place for most of the world. It's a long way away, as you're finding out, because you're booking your flights as we speak, I think. So physical participation, you got it sorted. Physical participation is a little challenging for some. However, we will make this available as a remote experience. So there will be a live streamed element. We'll record episodes for some of the ceremonies and some of the activations. And what I will say is that, and I really mean this because the whole of the organization of this gathering has taken place remotely, much like the phone call we're having. By participating remotely, you are participating. You're using your free will to show up and connect to these frequencies, and you'll feel it. I'm quite certain of that. And not only will you feel it, not only will you benefit, but we will benefit from everybody who joins us and their intention, because we're building this energy field that's very, very powerful. So I would wholeheartedly encourage anyone that hears this message and is resonating with it to participate in the remote gathering, or potentially to come in person. There are a couple of places left. But anyway.
Can you? What's the difference? The World Tribal Alliance. What is Origins? Can you speak to more of what Origins?
Yeah. So Origins is the name of the actual gathering. So I mentioned Craig earlier. So Craig spent the last 20 years of his life telling the story with some of the highest, most established archaeologists in the world of the origins of our species, again along that coastline. They have a wonderful exhibition down at the Sandparks Centre at Cape Point, the Cape of Good Hope, at the bottom of the Cape Peninsula, which does a fantastic job of telling this story of our ancient ancestry, of humanity's common ancestry. So when I was thinking of, what is the name for this gathering, spontaneously the idea of Origins came, and then I only learned later that was the same name as the exhibition they've got, so it felt quite synchronous. And it feels right too, right? Like Origins, like there's a certain power in it, like this is our origins. We have to kind of reclaim it, go back there, do the work to also heal that land, because at the same time as it being this incredible Eden, this wonderful playground that we had 200,000 years ago, which was abundant in sea life, in land life. I mean, it was the perfect microclimate. It served us beautifully. What happened since, as we all know, at least in the last couple of, say, 500-600 years, has been the most extreme violence. Against some of the purest souls that have ever walked the earth, which of course is a theme that we see all around the world with colonialism. And so one of our major intentions, which again spontaneously emerged, this is not coming from anybody's mind, this came from the plan, it just I can't explain how, but it just came, was to go and bring the purest aspects of humanity, these amazing shamans and healers and elders from nature, from the natural habitats of the world, each of the 6 corners of the planet, to come back and then to heal the land, to work with the local lineages of the San, the Korano and the Zulu, to reactivate, cleanse and heal these incredible portals that we see down in that peninsula. So you've got Cape Point, which is the most southwesterly point of Africa. It's the most powerful. I can't tell you how powerful this place is. It's a kind of, it looks like it's a point, and then on the west side is let me get this right, is the Atlantic Ocean. On the east side is the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. And they meet there, and Liz, you feel it. When you go there, I can't put into words what it's like. We've all been to places like that. You go there, and you just shut up. There's something, it's powerful. There's something about that place which is no joke. It's very powerful. And we'll open our ceremony there, and it's there that this exhibition exists. There are wild ostriches and baboons and wildlife, the sand parks. Nature's happy.
What a fair amount of wildlife where you are, Dom.
Right, and we got some nature going. I think Mother Nature's happy.
Bring some of that.
Exactly. So we're going to do a ceremony there with the San people, and it's important to reference the San people. The San, or another name, the original people, that original lineage that goes back 200,000 years. So they never left. So they are, if you like, the for me at least, the cornerstone of the human family, because they never left. We spread out and went our different ways, but they stayed, and they've suffered in many ways the most violence. But we'll work with them on that land to honor the land, to ask permission from the land and from their ancestors, which are our ancestors too, to do this work, and then we'll start the healing work. And we have some very, very powerful healers coming from the Sierra Nevada, coming from, again, New Zealand, Hawaii, the most beautiful, powerful healers, to reinstate that land with its natural vibrations. So that the vision is that we can then move forward. So Mahanji's vision is that we need to go back to the seed of humanity to heal that, and then that will resprout these energetic lines that will reach out into the rest of the world, so we can do the work that needs to be done there. And I shouldn't just say we, there are many similar platforms out there now which are bringing together Indigenous elders. And I really do see this as the most extraordinary tapestry of light, this wonderful tapestry. And we're all a different thread, and we're all contributing in our ways according to the plan that already exists. So why origins? Because we're going back to our origin as a civilization, as a species, as a planet, to heal it, to activate it, so that we can all move forward together as one. That's the plan.
It's a great plan.
Thanks to Mahanji. It's all thanks to Mahanji.
Yes, indeed. Very much looking forward to seeing Mahanji once again. In terms of, it all sounds, it's coming together, but what type of challenges have you been faced with, or any struggles along the way as this World Tribal Alliance has become what it is?
Well, yeah, Liz. So when Mahanji first came to stay with us, he had the idea for this and he ran it past us, but neither Anna nor I have any experience of anything like this. No idea how to do it. It's just an idea, right? And then coupled with the instruction that we're not to do anything proactively, not to go seek anybody out, was quite daunting, to be honest. But as I said, what I've learned from this, and this has been a huge, this has been a huge asset for me in my own faith and in the way that I run my own life, is that by taking action every day with that level of surrender of, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but if I write that email, or if I go to that meeting, or etc., if I book that flight, things have just unfolded. And it's like these breadcrumbs, and they just magically appear, the next one. And so that has been challenging for me, because I come from a very sort of left brain, masculine world of business and branding and before that law. So it was hard for me to make commitments to big things, not knowing how we're going to make that happen. That's been one of the hardest elements on many different levels. And then also, as a practice for me personally and for my wife, Anna, what I will say has been challenging is that we chose to live a very, I shouldn't say secluded, but private life. We moved out here to Brazil from Miami and from the UK, so that we could be with our family and live a natural life, kind of away from most people. And as a result of taking this project on, we've obviously been exposed to all different types of people and energies and intentions, and most of which have been incredibly beautiful and pure. But it certainly brought up things within me that I need to look at, I would say. The grist for the mill has been increased infinitely while working on this. which I benefited, enormously from. I'm much more empty now than I was when I started. So I'm very grateful for that. As hard as it's been, I'm very grateful for that. And I do feel that for me to begin to try to do what we're trying to do here, I needed to empty myself of a lot of stuff, because it is powerful, and there's a certain space holding element to it which requires emptiness. I'm experiencing that directly. So yeah, a few challenges, but what I'll say is nothing in comparison to the benefits that we have received, and I know that we're going to receive in South Africa. I am so incredibly excited for that. Liz, you were with us for the first iteration of this in Henley with Tito, the Huniquin, and with Mahanji. So it's going to be that times 13, times 15, times infinity, times.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. It's grounding. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is exciting, hey?
So exciting. It's so exciting. It's terrifying and it's exciting. Terrifying for me because, I don't know, there's a lot of plates spinning right now that we have to keep spinning. And so exciting. And I'm focusing on the excitement part. I feel like that's a good strategy.
Good. Good. That is a good strategy. That's nice. Nice positive spin. Well, this is exciting, isn't it?
It is.
Any other stuff that we want to chat about or bring up within this podcast about what to expect if somebody might participate in it? I mean, obviously, this opportunity to come, feel and tap in, learn, experience, all that.
Well, yeah, so we've got what the plan as it stands today, and I will say that, as you know, Liz, and many of our listeners know, once you get masters involved, the idea of a plan is kind of just a joke, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But the plan as we have it, there you go, right? So the plan as we have it is to visit, well, first of all, I should say, so we're going to be hosting our gathering at a place called Kwatu. And I want to talk a little bit about Kwatu because they deserve that acknowledgement. Kwatu is an Indigenous centre dedicated to the San people that was started, I believe, about 2 decades ago. And they have done the most phenomenal job of rewilding this very sacred land that looks out over the ocean, and telling the story of our common ancestry in the most elegant way, in a very beautifully executed way. So they have an exhibition centre, they have the opportunity to learn how to track with San tribes people, they have the most amazing lectures and food, they have locally foraged, wonderful organic food there available, they have a wonderful gift shop, and they just do a great job. So it was, when we were figuring out where to host this gathering and I found out about this place, it was immediately the obvious choice, and I'm so happy that we made that choice because Michael down there, who runs it so elegantly, so humbly, so beautifully, he deserves the grace that this gathering will bring him and his family in that centre. It's really, really wonderful. So that's where we'll be pitching up for the week, in addition to the nearby town of Yesserfontein, 5-10 minutes away, beautiful seaside town. Some of the accommodation will be there owing to a lack of space at Kwatu, and a respect for the local nature. We don't want to affect it, so we decided to rent houses instead, and we will be going from that base to Cape Point as mentioned. So we'll do our opening ceremony there, and we'll have all kinds of local dignitaries there, members of government, people like Craig, and environmental stewards of his caliber who he's connected with. He'll will come as dignitaries, and then we'll go from there the next day to Robben Island, so where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated. So we're going to go and do some healing there. We'll visit the prison where he was held, and these wonderful elders will come and just cleanse those patterns, those frequencies, which obviously are very dense after everything that happened. And that was, as with Cape Point and so many of these other spectacular locations on that peninsula, was traditionally a very, very powerful Indigenous ceremonial site. And of course it got used as a prison, as a leper colony by the colonialists, etc. So we feel it's important to go there. And I'll say again that this wasn't a plan that any one of us came up with. I visited South Africa and I was told, you've been invited by the authorities to come and see this space because we'd like for you to come and heal it. And I was like, well, how did they even know that we were coming? You know, so there is this very powerful force that, you know, it definitely serves us to go with, from my own experience. So we'll go there. And then the next day is the one that I'm maybe the most excited about, although I'm very excited about all of it. So the next morning we will go at the crack of dawn, literally, to Table Mountain, and we will, under the incredible guidance of Auntie Puna, conduct an Hawaiian sunrise ceremony on Table Mountain, watching the sun come up over Cape Town and the ocean. And very, very excited about that one. I think that's going to be a moment of transcendental bliss for all of us concerned. So beautiful, that Hawaiian tradition. Then we'll have a light breakfast and we'll come down to the castle. So there's the Castle of Good Hope in the centre of Cape Town. Again, was a site of colonialism and quite extreme, violence. So we're going to cleanse that and heal that and do what needs to be done there. Then we'll head back to Kwatu for a focus session with some of our elders. And then the last day we'll have our closing ceremony, which will present an opportunity for all of our elders to share their culture, their wisdom, their tradition, their songs with us, and everybody present online. So that's the shape of it. And it's going to be a very rich experience for everybody concerned. As Ram Dass, who I love, used to say, we'll all get fed from this one. We'll all go away satisfied, I think. So yeah, Liz will be our MC down on the ground. So I'm sure you've all enjoyed her fabulous questions, and you'll definitely be seeing and hearing more from her in Cape Town.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. Yes. Oh, my love.
One of the at the beginning, I don't think it's any coincidence, I was watching a YouTube interview of an Aboriginal elder from Australia. Very powerful man. There was absolutely no nonsense, as with a lot of these masters, absolutely no nonsense. And the interviewer, at the end of this long interview, said to him, thank you so much. If you could leave us, please, with one piece of advice on how we can rebuild the structures of society so that we're more in keeping with nature and with Mother Nature and the plan. And the elder he just laughed at him and said, you haven't listened to a word I've said. And so he said, well, how do you mean? He said, the minute the human mind tries to create something, inbuilt in that is its destruction, because it's built from individual preference and there's no way around that. He said, all that you can do, if you would like any advice that my tradition can provide, it is to foster the conditions for the emergence of love. That's what you can do. So it's like a garden. You plant the seed and you water it. Don't worry about how the plant looks. The minute you worry about that, it's broken. You just allow for the plant to take place, to take root, and to blossom and flourish. And then you'll see what comes. And you'll just be amazed by the beauty of it, but it won't be yours. You didn't do it. The minute you try and take ownership over it, you've broken it. And that was a really important teaching for me from the beginning, of not... Because the ownership thing turns out, at least from my experience, it works both ways. So on the one hand, if we own something, we want credit for it, don't we? We want to be special. We want to reinforce our separateness, our worthiness because of this thing that is ours. That's dangerous, that's heavy. But the flip side of it, I've actually found, so you let go of that and you feel this lightness when you don't own something and you surrender it to the bigger plan. But the flip side of it's been particularly powerful for me as a practice and as a teacher, which is that when you don't own something, you're also not really responsible for it, which is quite nice. So when there's a bigger plan, and I'll give you a perfect example, when there's a bigger plan and we say, well, if it doesn't work out, I know I've tried my best, so I'm okay, it's not mine, so whatever. As long as you try your best. So when I got to the airport for the second time, I didn't have a yellow fever vaccine the first time to travel to South Africa from where I live here in Brazil. So that was a problem. I couldn't get on the plane. I had the flu. It was horrific. I had to travel 2 days back to where I live. Got the vaccine, waited 10 days, got to the airport, took the flight, did the whole bit, got to the desk. and the girl says, "You've got the wrong piece of paper." And I'd already lost one flight, which is also very expensive, and I said to the girl, "Well, I must have the right piece of paper. I got the vaccine. This is what they gave me." And she said, "No, you need to have the app and the blah blah." And after about an hour of looking for this thing, which I could not make happen, I felt this enormous frustration building in me and this anger. And I was at a choice point, because at this point we were an hour and 10 minutes out from the flight taking off, and I was about to, and this would have potentially meant that there wouldn't have been a gathering, because I couldn't afford to keep coming back to Sao Paulo, and etc. And so I very quietly closed my eyes, and I said to Sai Baba, who's sitting here, who's my original kind of, I guess you could say, guru, I said, "You know what, this is your party, not mine. If you want this thing to happen, you're going to get me on this flight. And if you don't want it to happen, this is the perfect chance to let me know. Don't make the flight happen, I'll go home and that'll be the end of it." And then, sure enough, and this is without a word of a lie, I got a call from Anna. She said, "I figured it out. I found your old phone." So she found a phone in a drawer with an app on it from the government that had this thing in it, this certificate. Pure miracle. I mean, I don't think any of this really existed. Sent it to me, I showed it to the lady, and she let me through. I sprinted, it's like a movie. I sprinted through the things, on the train, onto the plane, doors were closing, and off to South Africa we went. But I truly believe the only reason that happened was that I said, well, it's not mine. I care, but I don't care as well, because it's not mine. I care in a different way. And then sure enough, all the cogs turned, and on we went. So, yeah. It's been a good practice for me, this whole thing.
That's
sure.
great. That's great to hear. That's a great story. Goodness me. I was like, how's this going to end?
Tell me about it.
Oh my God.
Imagine being in it.
Oh no.
Aye. But we got there in the end, and there's been a lot of that. Honestly, Liz, there's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of these moments where you think getting permissions from national parks to do ceremonies on Table Mountain, Liz, to have exclusive use of Table Mountain. Like, how do you do that? I don't know. I don't know anybody in South Africa. But sure enough, Craig has a friend, and they've got a friend, and they feel called, and next minute the environmental minister's involved, and everything clicks and gets signed. And I don't know how any of it happened. I just the other day got a video call from these wonderful humans who are all very grown up on the mountain, saying it's done, and Sai Baba did his job, Mahanji did his job. So yeah, and it has been an enormous catalyst for my own faith, because I'm just watching this thing, miracle after miracle, happen. And once again, the more I get involved in it, the more I've got my preferences of how it should look, the less it happens, the less it flows. So yeah, it's been good for me, this whole thing. Yeah.
A great teacher already. Great teacher already. Excellent. Well, this has been lovely, hasn't it?
It's been lovely, Liz. Always nice to catch up. Liz, for everyone's information, was my yoga teacher guru in Soho, London. When I was living a much more dense life, she would be my light in shining armour. Anna and I would go in and get a dose of her incredible mantras and yoga, and got me through some tough times. So very happy to have Liz here with us, and even happier to have her with us in Cape Town. We're all very lucky. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.